EAGLES. Eagles.
Welcome in, everybody, to a breaking news edition here on JAKIB Sports across the JAKIB Sports YouTube channel. Don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel, your number one place for Eagles news all the time. Some news today that we're not too excited about. I have John McMullen here with me to break it all down. The news coming out is that Lane Johnson has suffered a Lisfranc sprain, and he's expected to be sidelined for 4 to 6 weeks. Right now, it is not expected to be a season-ending injury, but he could end up on injured reserve. John, your first thoughts, and then just some context on this type of injury, something you speculated about on Birds 365 this morning, and now we have a little bit more clarity.
Best case scenario is the sprain, basically a mid-foot sprain. So you tear the ligaments instead of break the bone. Sometimes you do both, and that's a really serious. Lisfranc, Nakobe Dean had that a couple of years ago, and that would have ended his season. So possibility he could return. Obviously, very tough guy. He's going to play through stuff. I've been told that, the playoffs are the goal. So I do think eventually, whenever it happens, they'll put him on injured reserve because he's definitely going to miss 4 games. And I think, like I said, more likely you're earmarking the playoffs. And there's no guarantee with this injury either. It's pretty serious, even the sprain.
Yeah.
But obviously not nearly as serious if you break the bone. So, he'll be on crutches, boot most likely, and all that kind of stuff for a while. So hopefully he can make it back. It'll be Fred Johnson moving forward at right tackle, who's done a nice job, as Lane has been banged up a couple of times this year, but as good as Fred has played, and certainly as an extra tight end as well, he's not Lane Johnson. So, we've talked about the luck of this team with injuries. Still kind of lucky. It's, the hope, as I said, to get him back for the postseason, so it's not season ending in theory, but this is a pretty significant hit.
No doubt about it. John, he said he was looking for a second opinion. As you mentioned, obviously a Lisfranc sprain is a lot better than a Lisfranc break, which would obviously have put him out for the year. Do you expect that there's any possibility this changes? I mean, I'm not a doctor. I know you're not a doctor. I don't know how to explain some of this shit. You've just seen a lot more of these injuries than I have. Is this a good outcome? Do you expect it to change at all? Like what's kind of the thought process on it from that perspective?
Well, you can never say never with a misdiagnosis, but I've never heard of a misdiagnosis on a Lisfranc. I think it's pretty straightforward from that standpoint. So, it's never a bad thing to get another opinion on a certain thing, but that would be tremendous luck if that were the case. To me, the positive side is more towards it's not a break, because if it's a break, his season is obviously done.
Right. And John, the 4 to 6 weeks mark, it sounds like, based on what you've said, that's very optimistic. 4 weeks, almost to the point where it might be unrealistic. But if you're looking for him back for the playoffs, that would be, what, 6 or 7 weeks. At that point, do you feel all right to say he should be back for the playoffs, assuming everything goes well? Or, what kind of context can you add to that?
No, I never feel easy about this particular injury. It's a pain in the ass from a playing football standpoint, just in general life. You can imagine, you think about the top of your foot, the middle of the foot, and think about tearing ligaments there. It's very difficult to get around. Now, if this were a wide receiver, I'd say season over. Offensive lineman, a little bit different. They don't have to have that quite the same explosion or the movement skills. Not that They don't need explosion and movement skills, but you get my point. Obviously, tremendous amount of running and at high levels of speed for a receiver, cornerback, somebody like that. So, a little bit easier, I would say, to get back from an offensive line perspective. And Lane's savvy enough to where he can get away without, play at a high level without being 100%. So I would say the position makes it a little bit more likely to be able to return. And certainly, again, tough dude. That factors into it as well, because he's willing to play through some stuff.
John, a couple more questions here on Lane Johnson and the news that just came down with the Lisfranc sprain. John, any concern that Father Time does wait for nobody? Lane Johnson has been just such a staple on this football team, such a dominant right tackle, maybe one of the best right tackles you could probably say of all time at this point, or maybe even up in that conversation. Father Time, though, does seem to be maybe catching Lane a little bit. I think this is the fourth game now he's had to leave with some sort of injury, and now he's going to miss some extended period of time. What's your concern level on that?
No, I mean, he had a little stretch earlier, which was far more difficult for him, which I mentioned yesterday when he had to have reconstructive surgery on his ankle. At first, he tried tightrope surgery to try to get through it, and that didn't work. And he was really getting to the point where he thought maybe it would be it. So I think he's gone through tougher stuff than this. But yeah, I mean, anytime you get up in age, it's probably more of a concern, but I don't think it's related to, injuries. And I know the Eagles have had such a good run. It's sometimes the luck turns bad.
Yeah, haven't had many of these, John, where we've had to talk about big injuries like this. All right, John, on the football field, it's Fred Johnson time. What does that mean for the offense? How much does that change things? Obviously, this is an offense that has struggled basically on every level, in every area, running, passing. It doesn't matter. They're struggling at it to some extent. How much does this change things, and how much harder does it make it to kind of get some of those things on track here as we are well into the second half of the year now?
Yeah, I think obviously you're talking about one of the greatest right tackles of all time, as you mentioned, literally. So, I mean, you're not as good. I do think Fred is one of the better backup tackles in the league. You've already seen it.
Thank God they traded for him, John.
Yeah, Matt Pryor wasn't holding it down. So now you'll probably have Matt Pryor. They did it a few times in Green Bay. They did it yesterday once at least, where he'll be the extra blocker if they want to use those heavy packages. But yeah, I mean, you don't lose a player like Lane Johnson and just replace him and say, they'll put that framework on it, next man up, yada, 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 like everybody does. But can't replace that type of player.
No doubt about it. Going to be interesting to see. John, appreciate you joining in here. Not great news for the Eagles, but let's see what happens and let's see how they prevail through it. We will keep everybody posted if there is any change. It did say he was going to go in for a second opinion. John, your final thoughts here on the Lane Johnson news.
Yeah, as I said, it's Lisfranc was what I was concerned about, but better than a break. A break would have meant the end of his season, maybe his career, because he's thinking about walking away. So, chance to come back, and that's something. But you're going to be without him for a month or so. And hey, we talked about all of the injuries Detroit had yesterday, Green Bay. This is welcome to the rest of the league. Well, welcome to the real world. Sometimes you got to persevere through this stuff.
No doubt. Johnny Mac, thank you, brother. We appreciate it, man.
All right, see ya.
All right, thanks, John Mac. There's Johnny Mac, John McMullen joining us right here on Football 24/7, a little breaking news edition here across the JAKIB Sports YouTube channel. Don't forget to hit that like button. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. This is your number one place for Philadelphia Eagles content all day, all the time. We don't miss a beat here on JAKIB Sports. We appreciate everybody for being here. I'll take a couple comments from the great people. Lane Johnson, guys, big loss. I think John added some good context there. It's a lot better than obviously a Lisfranc break, where if you had a Lisfranc break, with an older player, could be the end. But it's a sprain, which is the good news. It's been reported it could be 4 to 6 weeks. And you heard John say, based on somebody he talked to in the organization, the hope is to get him back for the playoffs. So that's where we stand right now with Lane Johnson. There is no update on Cam Jurgens. Typically, you'll only get an update on Monday or right after the game if it's something bigger like this. If it's basic week stuff, they're going to wait for the first injury report to come out. The Eagles love to play that game. They don't like to give anything on the injury. So nothing yet on Cam Jurgens, but Lane Johnson, that's where the update is right now. Could miss 4 to 6 weeks, a Lisfranc sprain. He's a very tough dude. And guys, this is a big loss. I mean, look, I know we immediately go to next man up, and I agree. Fred Johnson's done a great job. It's good. Thank God we traded for him back, because remember, we let him walk in free agency, which was never the right thing to do anyway. Thank God we got Fred Johnson. My concern here is more about, how does this offense try and get things going with the loss of Lane Johnson, especially in that running game. Now you're going to have Fred Johnson in there. You're going to not be able to run that big Fred package, which they were using to get the running game going a little bit more. And you have potentially Cam Jurgens, who could miss time. So, what does that look like in terms of trying to get that running game going? Maybe potentially adds another wrinkle from that perspective. But Lane Johnson's a great player. He's one of the greatest Eagles of all time. I think he's a Hall of Famer. And he's one of the greatest right tackles to ever play the game. So this is a big loss, no doubt about it. I think the Eagles will be able to prevail. Next man up is the mentality. It's a Lisfranc sprain for Lane Johnson, 4 to 6 weeks. And I do think one of the biggest things to watch here is just how the offense handles him being out. And I will say one thing, just to try and be optimistic about something. I think the optimism here is that now Lane is out. So it's like, remember when Brett Toth came in for Cam when Cam went down in the middle of the game? Brett Toth looked like shit. And then when Jeff Stoutland had a week to prepare Brett Toth to be the center, he looked a lot better. So now you have kind of a week to prepare. Okay, Fred, you're the starting tackle. What do we want to do? How do we want to help him? How do we want to, game plan for who you have coming up? I think that's kind of a big advantage. Now, I hope the plan isn't to use Grant Calcaterra and what's the other guy's name? Kylan Granson to help blocking, because they were doing a lot of that last night. That thing wasn't working at all. But I think that's the one advantage here where he's going to be out. How can we prepare for Fred Johnson a little bit better than having to kind of put him in on a whim without the expectation that he would be in there? So that's probably the main advantage here. But it's never a good thing when you hear Lane Johnson, who could be a future Hall of Fame player. I think he will be a future Hall of Fame player, is out for 4 to 6 week stretch here. So it's going to be interesting to see how the Eagles prevail through this. We'll keep all you guys posted across the JAKIB Sports YouTube channel. Hit that like button. It's good to see everybody in here. I'll take a couple comments before we get out of here. All right. Here's Kyle. What's up, Kyle? Zander, the stretch where Lane is out, not bad for the teams we are playing. No doubt. I'd like to see what Willie Lampkin has. Jimbo, Willie Lampkin. I like Willie too. Here's Gerald. It's too bad, but your Eagles offense wasn't doing jack with him either. No real rushing attack. Defense keeps saving the birds. Hard to disagree with that at this point. Offense not doing much of anything right now. I'm Awake says more pressure on KP, Jalen, and Sirianni. Just what we needed. Pressure makes diamonds, my friend. Okay? Pressure creates diamonds. It is what it is. Try to survive says we can plan. I agree. Kelsey was irreplaceable too, and now he's overrated. He's not overrated. All right. Here's Dominique. I'm not going to that. You're just chirping at John. Kevin says time to put the rookie O-lineman in for blocking. We'll see if that becomes a thing here. All right. Try to survive says how many more years till Johnson retires, and who does Howie have his eyes on to replace him? I think we're drafting somebody in the first round this year, offensive lineman. We'll see. Xander, you think it's time to start thinking about drafting Lane's replacement? Absolutely, Kyle. I think it's past time to be blunt with you. Okay. Here's a Dino. Our O-line is so beat up. We want to get Barkley going. No way that's possible with all these problems. Dino, hang in there. Let's see what they can do. Here's DJ. Can John stop it with the Jody Mack point about taking the ball on first? I don't know what has to do with the Fred being out. Well, excuse me. Why can't Fred be the replacement? Hey, Big Trag, this is a good opportunity. This is a good opportunity. You know, Fred's got a 4 to 6 week period here. I've always liked Fred Johnson. You know, I've always thought he was a good, solid player. I don't know how old Fred Johnson is. He's 28, so, I mean, you get younger, but I don't, you know, he'll be 28 in the summer. No, he'll be 29 in the summer. Excuse me. He's 28 years old now, so I don't know how long-term that is, that type of replacement. But, look, Big Trag, it's actually a good call by you. If Fred Johnson plays well this year or in these 4 to 6 games, potentially they sign him to a 2-year extension, you know, and kind of give yourself a little bit more time to draft and develop your next right tackle. It's a fair point by you, Big Trag. We'll see what they can do. All right. We'll see what they can do here. Here's Underdog. Zander, this team's taking it all again. The defense going to gel like last season's all-world championship version. Underdog, I'm feeling the same thing. That defense is amazing. Steve Go Shoot says, this is not what the Eagles needed, especially less than 20 points in back-to-back weeks. Steve, we don't win with our offense anyway. Like, at the end of the day, part of me is literally like, I love Lane Johnson. Does this even matter? We don't win with our offense. We don't win with our offense. We're a defensive football team at this point. I mean, we're bottom 8, bottom 10 in every offensive category. You know, it's a big loss, no doubt about it, but, you know. Here's Q, the guy. 2 linemen out for a couple weeks, going to be rough, but let's go D. Yeah, we're a defensive team, man. I'm relying on that defense like we were, you know. Lane may be closer to the end. He's always hurt. SMA. Don't put that tag on him, man. Don't put that tag on him. I don't agree with that tag. You know, he's 35 years old. He's a fighter. He's a great offensive lineman, one of the best Eagles we've ever had in Philadelphia. You know, find me a 35-year-old who doesn't deal with some injuries. I get it. It's a part of it, but I wouldn't say he's always hurt, all right? He's battling, man. He's older, man. Father Time waits for nobody. I get it. It's something you got to plan for, but I'm not about to sit here and slap the tag at Lane Johnson is always hurt. He's one of the toughest dudes in Philly, man. No doubt. All right. Fred played great. Look, I think he's going to have a chance to play even better with a week to prepare. Alfredo says, you can't say we don't win with our offense. Bad mindset. Offense still got to put up points, bro. Alfredo, we're 8-2, and the offense has been dog shit. I mean, I get it. You don't want to hear that, but that's the truth. Until they turn it around, I've seen nothing to indicate that they will. First car vet, Cav Vet says, time for a center and right tackle, potentially. All right, potentially. Stephen Papar says, those tip passes can produce turnovers. Yes, they can. All right. So you're leaning with all the pressure on your defense. That's how you win, LOL, FDL. I'm not saying that. I'm going off of what they've done so far. I'm not saying that, hey, just embrace sucking on offense, but they've been trying to fix it, Steve. They've been unsuccessful. Bitch smacking Detroit's offense in that manner just put the league on notice, not to be mocked. Agreed 100%, Underdog. And as Nakobe Dean said, they felt mocked with the way Detroit kept going for it on 4th down. 0 for 5 on 4th down. That was a domination last night on defense. All right, so again, another year, another defensive football team. I'll take it. It is what it is. If the offense can get going just a little bit, I think this team's in a great position. Appreciate everybody for being here today. Lane Johnson out 4 to 6 weeks. It's a Lisfranc sprain, not a break. Big differentiation there. So make sure you remember that part of it. Appreciate you being here. Hit that like button on your way out. See you next time, everybody.
EAGLES Eagles.